Joel Embiid suffered another sinus fracture. He's going to be reevaluated early next week. But Philadelphia 76ers coach Nick Nurse expressed optimism about Embiid's return to action, saying his recent sinus fracture is, quote, not nearly as severe as the 2 previous facial fractures that he has had, which is a good thing to hear that, the optimism surrounding that. But this injury comes after Embiid recently opened up a little bit about how his knee injury has impacted him. Quote, there's no injury, just between the swelling. We've got to get it figured out. I've been saying it for the last few months. It's been extremely depressing. I would love to play every single game, but sometimes your body just says no, and you can't do nothing about it. Eric, as someone who has battled through injuries throughout your career, like Joel has, what advice would you give for hearing that Embiid, these injuries are, depressing him, and then yet he says this, and a game later he gets hurt again? What kind of advice would you give Embiid, as an NBA vet yourself, who battled through those injuries? What kind of advice would you give him as he kind of navigates through all these injuries?
It's tough, man. The one advice, just keep your faith, because injuries are tough, and they're different from a standpoint of, you can have different kind of injuries. There's injuries that you can play with. There's injuries that sit you down. And there's injuries that you may feel like, there were times when I played and I got injured, and up until maybe right before the game, I was feeling like there was no way I could play. And then I end up playing, and you kind of gradually never miss a game. And then there's those injuries that are prolonging, where it seems to always be something real nagging. And that seems to be where Joel was at. So, he got to keep his faith, because I've been there. I know when that you say is no injury, but the swelling keeps coming. Obviously something's keeping the swelling coming. So it's complications from the injury.
Yeah.
Even though you may be permitted to play, or your injury is stable, meaning maybe no more further damage can be done, as they, in doctor's terms, as they say. But there's complications from it. When I broke my ankle and had the procedure and I was able to play, I developed Achilles tendonitis from it, which was extremely painful. But yeah, I wasn't injured. My injury was healed, but there were still complications from that injury. So that's a part that's never really talked about, when people get injured and they come back, and those same expectations that were put on you before the injury are put back on you. And then people seem kind of puzzled at times why players take a while to get back to where they were. Sometimes you never do. You just never know when they cut you open, how it's going to be on the back end. Like, you really don't know. So yes, he's considered not injured, but if he's still getting swelling from the injury that he had, then to me, he is still injured. And he's not back to close to where he was pre-injury. So I don't know how long this is going to last, and hopefully for his sake, it doesn't last too long. But I think this is going to be something that probably seeing what I see now, this is going to be something that's probably going to take us through most of this season.
As far as his latest injury, I was looking at that tweet from Derek Bodner that he posted about the low number of facial fractures that the NBA's had in the last however many years, and then Embiid has like a large chunk of those. And it's just crazy how one man can keep getting his face broken. It's crazy. There's no way to explain it. There's a lot of guys that get in the mix. There's a lot of guys that.
It's different, because some guys have had it. I think it probably happens more than is documented. I know my nose broke by Tim Hardaway. I don't even think Tim didn't even realize he probably did it. I didn't miss any time. It just kind of was a little crooked, but it wasn't really like a fracture. But guys, sometimes you don't miss time from it. So I think that sometimes they're only looking at it from a standpoint of missing time. But guys get hit in the face all the time. You'll see guys remember guys used to put the mask on all the time.
Yep.
Back in the day. And to protect themselves from being hit again in that same spot. You don't really see the mask anymore because guys won't play. They just won't play.
Embiid hates the mask.
Some of it is their right. Some of it is the team isn't necessarily saying, "Hey, can you still play?" I mean, the guys just used to play. I believe that some of these injuries, facial injuries, guys used to play with, and now
I've seen guys.
You just don't see it very often.
And I've seen guys get used to the mask and play with it. I think Hamilton played long term with the mask, right? Even after he got healed up, didn't he?
Rip might have played, almost the rest of his career.
I think he played because he just got used to it.
Yeah.
And I know Embiid hates the mask.
I mean, Joel played with one. Joel played with one before. Yeah.
Do you think we're at the point now? I mean, he must be talking to.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, I'm saying I don't think that. I just know that. I'm just saying, as far as your numbers, where you said that it wasn't that many. I'm just saying I think it was more than that. But
yes,
especially when I played, people got hit in the face all the time. Guys just didn't always sit out from it. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's true. I guess documented cases were like severe cases, maybe where they had to miss time for it.
Yes, where people sitting or missing time. Yes.
We're at what now? 3 fractures in the face for him? 3, right?
3.
I mean, he didn't even play the late great Dikembe Mutombo, who was, a regular at putting people out.
That's right. Do you think? And then he got it all back from Shaq that one series, man. He was delivering blows to poor Dikembe in that series.
Yeah. He wasn't the only one that got it from Shaq.
Yeah. That was like one of those slow motions. Man, it was like watching a boxer get hit with a glove. Sometimes you can see like the sweat come out of people's mouths and stuff when they're getting hit. Do you think he's got to be talking about it? Maybe long-term mask. I know he hates the mask, but at some point, maybe long-term, just wear the mask, Hamilton style. Or no, you don't think so?
I don't think he'll ever commit to that long term.
He hates it too much.
That's something he would choose to do.
What, 2 more facial fractures? Like, all right, I gotta wear a mask. You gotta do it. I can't help this anymore. I can't do this anymore.
I mean, I mean, if you don't like it, you don't like it. I just don't think that he'll commit to it no matter what. Man. Maybe he may commit to it. Why until it heals properly, but no, I just can't see him doing that.
Yeah, he hates it. Be a great press conference question for him. How many more facial fractures before you consider just wearing the mask all the time? Because I mean, he's talked about how painful these are too. The actual injuries. So it's like one thing is just to avoid it, just to not have it happen anymore. So, but
he even branded it too. I mean, when he got it the first time we wore the mask, Phantom of the Process, he embraced that. So I was like, okay, maybe there is a little gimmick there that he can kind of ride with. But I mean, you don't like playing with it, man. Yeah, he's adjusting every time he's playing with it.
Philadelphia sinus Sixers, man.
Yeah.
Talk about branding. Brand that.
Yeah.
I did want to ask you another thing, kind of in regards to this, and I know it's, I when athletes open up about depression and stuff, it's not easy. It's not easy to do that anywhere, whether you're an athlete or not, to open up about how you're feeling, right? And especially with the athletes, there's millions and millions of people, has opinion on your life, your injuries, and all that stuff. And today, Stephen A. Smith was on First Take, and he kind of pretty much called out Embiid in a way, likening him to Ben Simmons. And I think to say this a week after Embiid comes out saying, he's depressed about all the injuries he's going through, I'm going to play the clip. I just want to get your guys' opinion on what Stephen A. Smith said about it.
Let me say this to Joel Embiid in all seriousness. My brother, you're about a tad bit away from being compared to Ben Simmons. It's starting to look that bad. Now, let me tell you something right now. You bring up the injuries and all of that stuff. I look at the disinterest on his face. And that was before it got cracked. Okay? I look at the disinterest, the lack of enthusiasm, whatever. Now, we can talk about his injuries, and fair enough, Perk, right? But here's the problem. You were injured last year. You only played 39 games. In the playoffs, obviously, you got bounced in the first round by the New York Knicks. You didn't look that way in the Olympics. Looked pretty damn happy. Looked pretty damn happy playing in the Olympics, okay? And then inexplicably, you ain't ready to go come this season, all right? And I'm looking at that, and I got this list of injuries here, just so y'all know. Sinus fracture. Foot, knee, health protocols, back, hand, face, ankle, shoulder, calf, hip, elbow, ribs, injury management. That is why I was against your assertion to sit him down, because I'm going like this. He's always hurt. This brother will get hurt going to the bathroom. I gotta use him when I gotta use him, because I never know. Just because you don't play him don't mean he ain't gonna show up hurt. Wow. Evidenced by him playing in the Olympics, looking just fine, and then 2 months later when the season starts, there's nothing. He's injured, and it's like, what the hell happened?
It's another classic case of the insensitivity that athletes get. But what do you guys think of that? I mean, the Ben Simmons comparison. I mean, what do you guys think about that?
No, that's Steve is right. I mean, he has a right to have an opinion, and then also his opinion is based on entertainment. But I know Steve, so I think he feels that way though. I mean, he probably adds some little selling points and drama for television. But I do think that he feels that way. I don't really know where almost like Ben Simmons, like I didn't know where he was going with that comparison. But the injuries is one thing. To me, it sounded like he's questioning him sitting out for all of his injuries. To me, that's what it sounded like. More than him just being injury prone. It's like, when are you going to play with some of these injuries? When are you going to play through some of these injuries? That's the only thing. Maybe that's where he was going with Ben Simmons comparison. Otherwise, I didn't really get it.
He said the disinterest in his face and the lack of enthusiasm and interest.
I don't necessarily see that. Like I didn't look at Joel. Like, we've never had conversations like we seen the disinterest. Like, no. And I know we probably watch the Sixers more than Stephen A. does, and I don't see that. I don't see that being the case. So it's hard for me to kind of agree with that point. But the availability, obviously, that's an issue. The availability,
it's valid,
with injuries, is that's there. That's going to be there. Unfortunately, that's probably going to be the rest of his career. That's probably going to be there for a while. So I don't know how it's going to be addressed, but I think it was maybe a little early for that conversation for him to, for what he's done. He is coming off of, like I said, like what he did pre-injury, what he was doing pre-injury in February, whenever it was. And then he was MVP the year before that. I mean, he was arguably on his way to back-to-back MVPs.
Yeah.
So
scoring titles.
It's obvious that if he hasn't consistently gotten back to that form, there's a reason why, because it wasn't like he was just not performing or playing pre that time. So I think that it's disappointing. It has to be disappointing from all ways of him not being able to consistently be at the level that he was at, and that's what tells me that it's an injury, because most guys at his level, with the minutes and with the touches that they get, they can somehow come close to getting back to the level where they were. Look at a guy like Kevin Durant, who's had a high injury amount.
Yeah.
But that he still sustains that level of play no matter what.
Yeah.
And maybe it's unfair to compare him to KD. But KD is very special. But I'm just giving an example of a high talent guy that has had a higher than average amount of injuries that kept him out long term. But still, when he came back, he was still that guy.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I'm gonna stand on it. I think Joel was more injured than they're putting on.
What also is flawed in Stephen A's comment is that Embiid was injured before we even had Ben Simmons. So, like, if anything, Ben Simmons pulled an Embiid, not the other way around. Embiid missed like 2 seasons before we even got Ben. So, I mean, he's been doing this for long before Ben was even drafted into the NBA. So that's why, if he wants to compare the disinterest part, but man, we haven't even seen him enough to know he's disinterested. I mean, he's been playing a handful of games, if you want to even count the last one. So, and if he looks that way, might it be tied to his recent quote that he's extremely frustrated, annoyed, and depressed about it all? I mean, that's kind of an easy target for him to go at. And he's comparing him to a guy who also, on his way out of Philadelphia, talked about mental health. So, they also have that in common too. A guy who was frustrated by his injuries and said he had mental health problems. What people want to say it was valid or not, that's up to them. But that's what he was saying. And that's what Embiid's saying now. So a little weird for Stephen A to say that.
Too soon on many accounts in his soliloquy there.
Yeah, and he was speaking to Joel. He said, "This is to Joel."
Yeah.
Okay, maybe Stephen A just trying to light a fire under him.
Maybe I know he is a big Joel Embiid fan. I will say that.
Yeah.